Hey, welcome back to the Brownie Points podcast. Quinshon Judkins Dominates, Dillon Gabriels Debut, but another disappointing loss for the Browns. We'll discuss all that, plus our Brownie Points segment, where we discuss the standout players on offense and on defense, and then we're going to finish it up previewing next week's game versus the Steelers. Let's begin with a recap. First quarter, the Vikings were moving, but the Browns defense forced a fumble. They've been good all year, and that continued in this game. Judkins led the way on a drive downfield, and Dillon Gabriel finished it off with a touchdown pass to Harold Fannin. The Vikings immediately respond with a touchdown of their own. Both defenses stiffened up, and the score held until just before the end of the half, until the Browns drove all the way downfield looking for a touchdown before a false start essentially forced them into a field goal, putting them up 10-7 going into the half. The Vikings came out strong in the second half and scored immediately a touchdown behind Jordan Mason's running, and then the Browns used a team effort to score a second half touchdown, Dillon Gabriel throwing one to David Njoku. Dillon Gabriel then passing Joe Flacco for touchdown passes thrown in the year, believe it or not. Both teams stalled again for a while until pretty much the very end of the game, and it looked like the Browns were going to hold on. With 3:27 left on the clock, the Browns stopped the Vikings offense and got the ball with a chance to put it away with just a few first downs. The Browns ran it up the middle twice for a gain of just a couple yards, ultimately flailing and failed to convert on a 3rd and long. And the Vikings made them pay, Carson Wentz throwing an absolute dime to Justin Jefferson for the win. And Levi, that really leads me into my question. The Browns, a frustrating game. The defense was playing well as they have been all year. And yet it's another loss. They changed the quarterback. They're doing something different. But the result ultimately was the same. For you, who's at fault for this game? Who is to blame for that loss?
Yeah, I mean, I would say more than anybody, if you had to pick one, it's going to be Stefanski. For several reasons. Number one, you are the head coach, and there should be a hand in everything to an extent. So that's always going to play out.
Sure.
And while I think for a good portion of the game, he had a good balance of being, both conservative and being, somewhat aggressive a little bit in the right spots, and he was doing right up until that last touchdown score. And then all of a sudden he was like, okay, well, now I'm just going to tunnel for the rest of this game because I think I have enough that maybe I can hang on just enough. Yeah. My defense will finish it off. And it was too many drives. And he needs to, by now, this is not his first year, it's not his second year, not his third year coaching and play calling.
Wait, you're 6 now, right?
Is it
5.
Year 6? Year 5,
five
right?
or 6, yeah.
Yeah, it's year 5. 2020 was year 1, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, he's done it long enough by now. And he's been in this situation long enough by now to know you need to have a few first downs and a few decent drives in there. You can't just sit there and do nothing and expect that your defense, even if they are good, will always hold up.
Yeah.
And so eventually they didn't. And
they do that all game too, right? I mean, like all game they basically expect the defense to hold up, and then.
But they had a couple drives in there.
No, I know. That's what I'm trying to say is the problem. Like you can't ask them to do it for the entire game. Like you ask them to do the bulk, but then at the end you got to push it.
And they had some balance. Like, and it wasn't like they were a juggernaut, but they were moving it. They were getting things done occasionally. Yeah. They would like occasionally mix in a couple passes more than 10 yards, and Dillon would hit something here and there. And you had to give him a few opportunities because guess what? He's not polished yet. But he would hit a few, and it was going well. And then you took him right out of rhythm because you went super conservative, and you took him right out of rhythm right when he was actually kind of hitting his stride. And so I thought that was a mistake. And then because also now quarterbacks get the rhythm back right away. Like again, he's not a 5th-year player. He's a rookie. And a lot of guys, they get that rhythm, and you want to keep that rhythm going. So have a few dump-offs in the meantime to keep them, going, and they didn't. So I thought that was a mistake, and just quite frankly, again, this is not a mistake he's learning for the first time. He did this a lot in 2020, and they would just get by a lot. But he would let teams come back.
They had a lot of close games. I think
because they would let people come back in the second half.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, but just saying.
Yeah,
and then sometimes
I think 10-0 that year, I think, when going into halftime with a lead. But a lot of times they would end up close at the end, and they would squeak by. And then
it came back to bite him.
Well, yeah, because now we don't have a team that has a lead.
Well, right. But I'm saying like in 2021,
exactly.
He started to come back. So it's like, okay, but that's when you learn the lesson. You can't keep learning that lesson. On the other hand, I don't want to be too harsh because I do understand the feeling of like, okay, because I don't think he wanted to start him this week. I think Flacco was so awful. He felt like, actually, contrary to some people's beliefs, for whatever reason, on the radio, he felt like the locker room would think he was giving up if he played Flacco.
Yeah,
Like, he
I
was
know.
playing
People had
so
it all
awful.
backwards. I know. People are like, oh, then like the veterans are going to feel like you're throwing away the years. Like, no, I think the veterans would rather you go to Dillon Gabriel. I think that they don't see hope in Joe Flacco and his play. And I think that they're...
Mainly because they watched him play.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's hurting the morale by playing because he's terrible. He can't throw the ball more than 7 yards, and he can't run. And he's still throwing picks.
He gets caught on sacks he should not be caught on.
But that's what I'm saying. Look, what are you contributing at this point, right? You're
No,
not the savvy
100%.
veteran who's not throwing any picks. You're not a gunslinger with a strong arm like you were 2 years ago for us.
Yeah.
You're not mobile. What are you? Nothing, right? So that's why they made that move. I completely agree with you on that point.
So they move over. But at the same time, he waited until the last minute, till he absolutely couldn't play Flacco anymore. The reality is, probably should start him last week. Start him against the Lions. They don't have a great defense, the Lions. It's a better starting spot for you. You're starting at, you're not going overseas. Much more normal start, normal defense before you got to go play the Vikings. So I felt like he was trying to hold out, and then he just felt like his hand was forced. So he decided to play him against the Vikings, but he was nervous about it, and he knew how complicated that defense can be and how the looks can be. And if you ask your guy to come out there and make a lot of big plays, you're more likely to make some big mistakes. And I felt like he was both nervous about that and nervous about the fact that, how it will affect the psyche of a Dillon Gabriel. So I think he was being a little overly cautious. So I don't want to ding him too much, but it was a mistake. I do feel like some people are overreacting, be like, Stefanski's trash. And I'm like, I feel like that's overdoing it.
Yeah.
But yes, at times he's had trouble with his play selection. This is not new. It's always been the case. Even when a lot of those same people were cheering for him when he had way worse play selection in 2020. But he had good game planning.
I do think it's improved overall. Cause
it's definitely improved.
A lot of the mistakes that we see now mostly at the end of games, but we used to see that all throughout the game where it would just be very predictable. And I do feel like now he's so much more of a better balance of mixing in all different kinds of plays.
And that's the point I'm making.
Calling them at the right times.
Right, that's my point. Like, now the guys who are saying, oh, he's so awful, those same guys cheer for him whenever there was the W. So it's like, they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
They did box score punditry. Yeah, so it's like it worked out. But like, look, this is not new, but for the most part, he has been better. And I do want to give him some credit because, like, I shouldn't say credit, but some leeway.
Sure.
Because it was a very awkward spot to be in.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I see are writing off Dillon already, which I guess that's a different segment. We'll get into that when we get into that. But he made his mistakes. I do want to mention that Schwartz. Look, the thing about Schwartz he's an aggressive defensive coordinator.
Sure.
And a lot of times that plays out well.
Yeah.
Where he gets stuck is he does not play chess very well.
Yeah.
And he can get outsmarted.
Yeah.
And this was a game where he got outsmarted.
The Vikings are an intelligently coached team.
O'Connell knows what he's doing.
That's what I'm saying. On offense and on defense, though. They're
Both
a
sides.
well-coached team. They're I mean, on defense, they are scary to play against. I can only imagine what it must be like to debut against a team that's that much pre-snap movement. And then you can see, like, you see their timing, a second before the snap, 2 seconds before the snap, all of a sudden everything flips. They've guys moving around, backing up. Everything is constantly changing, which I think is also important when you are factoring into Dillon Gabriels' debut and how he performed, which we'll get into in the next segment. But,
absolutely should be a factor.
Was there anybody else that you really felt was to blame for that loss outside of Kevin Stefanski? I mean, because there weren't that many.
That's what I was bringing up right now,
Schwartz,
Schwartz, because
Jim Schwartz.
Schwartz. I mean, look, the defense mostly played well, but there were times when he got outsmarted. There were times where I hated the fact that he insisted on everybody play their position no matter what the offense was doing.
Yeah, he's not playing the matchups.
Yeah, you can't let a guy like O'Connell, who has the talent he does at receiver, pick your matchups for you. It's just a bad slot. And so you got too many times where they stuck Jefferson on Newsome. And Newsome actually played pretty well, all things considered. But he's Justin Jefferson, and he's not meant to play a guy like Justin Jefferson. And as such, there were times where he got beat. And then the most egregious is at the end of the game, and they're driving, and there's only, 50 seconds left. It's low on the clock. It's third down. It's 3rd and 3, I believe it was, 3rd and 4. And it's a situation where, hey, if you get a stop here, they're going to kick a field goal. It's tie game. You'll get a shot to go get your own field goal or go to overtime.
Yeah.
Right? And they put Jordan Addison in the slot, and the Browns don't do anything. So you got Miles Harden and Jordan Addison.
Yeah, does it just feel a lot like...
And Addison just schools him.
They're playing chess and we're playing checkers. I mean, quite literally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got our pieces where they are, and no, they can't move. It has to be right here. And they're like, no, we're going to go up and down. They go up there, left, right, diagonal, all over the place, and we're just where we are. And don't want this to be, criticizing Jim Schwartz's segment, but this was a point where his Achilles heel, I guess you could say, or his weakness was really highlighted, and where it can hurt the Browns against more complex, more well-coached, intelligent offenses that try to scheme their guys like they do. And yeah,
and that really applies again on that third down specifically, because even if you generally want to stick with your guy, you say, hey, most of the time we're going to stick to what we do because I think it's the best overall for the team in the long run. In a critical third down like that, you have to be adaptable. Mm-hmm. You got to know it's a different situation. It's a different kind of play.
Yeah.
So I really, so he does deserve some blame. Yes, he doesn't get all the blame, but he does deserve some blame because he deserves a little bit of blame.
Yeah. So you've got Kevin Stefanski, you've got Jim Schwartz. Is that where you feel like the primary blame is at?
And then, left tackle. At the
that
same
was
time,
bad.
Do you blame them or not blame them? Like, on one hand, these guys weren't supposed to be any good anyway.
Yes.
But they didn't play well, so I don't know what to tell you.
At the end of the day, it's still your fault whether or not you were, those false starts destroyed the team between him and Cam Robinson coming in, taking turns, doing penalties, and blowing up plays. You could tell the Browns were like, all right, we'll just try you. Okay, that wasn't good. Go back. It was really bad at left tackle. They absolutely deserve some blame. Look, the Browns were competitive in that game, and it was closer than it has been in previous games. And so you feel like, all right, there was improvement. But at the same time, the team was averaging 14 points coming in. They scored 17. It wasn't that much of an offensive improvement. There's still plenty of blame to go around. I think the blame for Kevin Stefanski comes at the end of the game, where they just ran that ball up the middle twice when they had the ball with just 3 minutes left. But that's the most predictable thing you could possibly do. Everyone in the building saw it. When I was watching, I was like, oh, they're about to run this ball up the middle, aren't they? And then they did.
So going back a little bit for a second, because you were talking about 17 and 14, and I'm saying, okay, but 14, is that really accurate? Because week 2, okay, we go play the Ravens. We get 1 touchdown in cleanup from Dillon, right? Like at the very end of the game. Non-factor. And if it wasn't anything factor, it was a Dillon factor anyway. So not really what we're talking about. We're talking about improvement.
Yeah.
So, okay, then they go play the Packers. And the Packers, it was all at the end. It was basically all Quinshon Judkins on the one drive that was a drive, and the other drive was on a turnover.
Yeah, it was all in the last 3 minutes or whatever it was. Yeah.
And most of it was turnover yardage. It was like 1 touchdown drive in there. And most of it was all run plays, run plays. Not even like 4 pass plays.
Judkins was spearheading.
It was Judkins, and it was only 1 drive because, again, the other one was completely turnover. Like, it puts you right there. Like, it wasn't like they did anything complicated. So the other 2 drives were all turnover yards because there were field goals too. Like, it wasn't even like you punched it in even.
Yeah.
Then you go and you play the Lions and you do a whole bunch of nothing. And you get 1 more right late. So it's like, were they even putting up 14? Like, the offense didn't even feel like it was owning 14 points.
I suppose, but
you know what I'm saying? Like,
way,
these were 17 points when it mattered.
Either way, though, 17
is 17 in the mid-third. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a late fourth quarter score. It was mid-third.
No, I know what you mean. It wasn't all garbage time points.
Up until the mid-third, the offense was working.
Yeah, it wasn't all garbage time points, but regardless, though, I would still say, in my opinion, though, I would still say 17 is still not a lot.
It's not a lot.
Only scoring 17, there's probably a number of reasons why, not just one person, right? So I think.
But also, if you have 17 in the mid-third, it probably speaks more to the mindset changing than it does to a lack of ability to score.
Yeah, I think it was.
You probably could have at least had 20.
I think it was clearly smoother and a little bit more efficient with Dillon Gabriel, especially without the turnovers, right?
Yeah.
But I think Kevin Stefanski, overall called a pretty good game. I thought the play calling was pretty good. I thought the scheming was pretty good. I think they're playing the way they're going to need to in order to win. I just felt like I really just didn't like that play calling at the very end when they had that ball, and they just needed a few first downs, and they didn't even get
the last couple drives were too conservative.
I really didn't love that.
But he may not be as conservative moving forward if he has more faith in Dillon Gabriel.
Yes, exactly. And we'll see how that goes going forward. But that's where, for Kevin Stefanski, that's where my little bit of blame is. I want to put, yes, for Jim Schwartz, I think his unwillingness to change. On the flip side, if you have him do that, maybe he loses that aggressive edge. You know what I mean? You might lose what makes him great. Sometimes in life, in general, there are weaknesses about somebody or something. And while we really want to get rid of those weaknesses, sometimes those weaknesses are a direct byproduct of the things that we love about that person or about that thing. And so sometimes you really don't want to get rid of that. Do you know what I mean?
Which is why I said maybe just
try to whittle away someone's weaknesses, you're kind of taking away too much of who they are, and you're going to lose what makes him great as well. And I'm not saying that would happen. I'm just wondering about that. But regardless, that inability of his to match up chess-wise, and to play the matchup game, and to move guys around the field was highlighted in this game. The Vikings absolutely took advantage, and Justin Jefferson shredded the Browns. So I think Jim Schwartz deserves some blame on that end. I also think, like you, the left tackle position was an absolute nightmare. I think Jack Conklin played very, very well from what I was able to notice of him. He's offensive lineman. I'm not going to pretend like I watched an entire game of film on Jack Conklin, but I really did try to pay extra attention to him, and I felt that he played really well, and he stepped in, and that was great. But that left tackle was just a nightmare, and it really botched a lot of plays and a couple drives. So they definitely deserve some blame there. I also want to put some blame on Andrew Berry because it's his fault that this receiver room looks like what it does. I am disgusted by this receiver room. It boils me up inside watching these guys playing football, getting paid millions of dollars and dropping the ball. Jerry Jeudy cannot be a number one receiver. And I know nobody considers him a number one receiver in that way. You know, there's like, are you a number one? There's like almost like just that term. Nobody considers Jerry Jeudy that. But he is number one on this team. You can't be number one on this team if you're dropping a ball every damn game. And I mean, what? I think every single game he dropped one ball. I think a couple of them, I think 2 or 3 of those drops were on 3rd down or 4th down even. It's just so painful. And he's not that good. I know he has his talents. I know he's got some route running skills in there. But as the number one on the Browns team, it is not working. Again, I'm not sitting there watching the all-22 and watching a whole game like that and drawing everything up on a playbook. You know, have the marker thing. I'm not with a smart board. I'm not doing that, right? I'm watching the game just like any of you are. I'm a fan. But, again, I tried to pay extra attention to the receivers, trying to understand, you know, how much of this is Dillon Gabriel, how much of it is the receivers, how much of it is the scheming. And these guys are not getting open. These guys are not getting an inch of space. And obviously some credit has to go to the Vikings defense. But also the Browns' offensive receiver room is not that talented. And it really showed in this game. I think there's gonna have to be improvement there. And I don't know how they're going to do it. There's rumors about A.J. Brown. I don't really know how realistic that is. That feels like one of those flash-in-the-pan rumors.
That feels like just someone's unhappy, and every team that wants a receiver starts talking about it.
Starts talking about it, exactly. It feels like one of those one-sided rumors. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where the other team's fans are like, oh, I bet A.J. Brown's available. And the Eagles are like, no, he's not available.
A.J. Brown might even become available, but the whole thing with A.J. Brown is an attitude thing. I don't think he wants to come to the Browns. Like, let's just be honest.
No, I doubt it.
And I don't think the Browns should try to trade for him.
And if I was A.J. Brown, I wouldn't want to go to the Browns.
And if I was the Browns,
Brown and
I
Browns
wouldn't want A.J.
nice,
Brown. And that's not a knock on his talent, but the reality is if you're going to deal with attitude issues, with things not going well, that's not who you want on the team right now. Like, you're just not in a position to want that guy.
I don't see this problem really being resolved unless they figure out a way to really scheme Njoku and Harold Fannin even more into the system, try and open things up a little bit more. You do feel like Isaiah Bond has more talent. There's more to squeeze out of him, so to speak. But we'll have to see, and he's going to have to get space in order for him to get the ball. Even though he has made a number of acrobatic catches and athletic plays, you're going to have some separation if you want that ball thrown to you more. So I want to give some to Andrew Berry. I want to give some blame to Jim Schwartz, some blame to Kevin Stefanski, some blame to those left tackles, and some blame to those wide receivers. I do feel like Dillon Gabriel came in and, for the most part, did his job.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get into his debut in the next segment, but what are you trying to say?
Just real quick before we jump to Dillon Gabriel, the only quick thing I'm going to mention about Berry, because you were saying to blame, what I think, honestly, maybe even more to blame, is the tackle situation, because he's the one who keeps signing and drafting injury-prone guys and then not having backup plans.
Yeah. And they didn't really address the receiver issue in the offseason.
Well, I'm saying these are two consistent issues, but tackle's been consistently injured for years now.
Yeah.
This is not new. And he's just like, I'm going to stick with the same guys.
We got Zach Zinter, but yeah.
But he's interior.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
He's a guard. He's not a tackle.
No, I know. I'm saying they're not really addressing
They're not trying to do anything.
The only guy they picked up was Zach Zinter. That's what I'm trying to say.
He's interior, though. He can't even play on the outside. So it's like, what's your...
And to be fair, I know why he's not doing it, because he's sitting there and he's like, okay, DeJuan Jones is... he's been a bit up and down, really. I mean, his best year was his rookie year, oddly enough. But, he's decent enough at least, and hopefully he can progress. Jack Conklin, we know that he's really great. Ethan Pocic is about as solid of a center as there is in the league. I'm not saying he's the best, but he's like as solid of a center in the league, if you know what I mean.
You got nice
and our guards are
healthy,
still really nice. That interior, that whole right side on, honestly, once you get to Bitonio and on, it's really solid. But that left tackle position is just, it's an absolute nightmare. I think what this team really needed, again, some blame to Andrew Berry, right? What that team really needed was a sixth man of sorts for that offensive line, and we really don't have one. It's after DeJuan Jones came out, it was just disaster city at that left tackle position. And I think that's going to continue for the rest of the year, and I think that's the hardest thing to to swallow, and I'm really hoping that the lack of receivers and the lack of depth at left tackle is not going to prevent us from seeing what Dillon Gabriel is really capable of. Although, we can use our intellectual hats on and try to be analytical, and I think watching that game, despite the issues at wide receiver and at left tackle, I think it was clear that Dillon Gabriel was pretty solid in his debut. And I want to know from you, what were your overall impressions of him? Because for myself, I felt like he looked solid. I didn't see anything crazy, but I also didn't really see a lot of negatives. I think I saw him do really nicely as far as his pocket management, which is what we talked a lot coming out of college. We talked about his pocket management and how Kevin Stefanski is really going to like that. They took him. We talked about his pocket management in preseason, and that was one of the main reasons why we were liking him over Shedeur Sanders, despite Shedeur having a couple, flashy plays that people were all going nuts about. It's like, no. Dillon's managing the pocket. Shedeur is not. This is not going to translate. And it translated into this game where Dillon Gabriel managed the pocket really well. A lot of plays, he just stood in there, even as the pocket was collapsing. And instead of just leaving or backing up and giving the defenders an easy grab on him, he held his ground and got rid of the ball, throwing the ball away a number of times. Which, I kind of got used to that not happening. But that it was a good way, right? It's that savvy quarterback play. And I felt like we got a little bit of that wily veteran QB play without the turnovers that we were getting from Flacco. So I think especially compared to him, it was nice. He passed him on touchdown passes for the year. As like we were talking before we started recording, you mentioned that to me, which is really sad for Joe Flacco. But I think also points to the fact that it's already paid off. It's already proven that moving to Dillon Gabriel was the right move. Yeah. But what were your overall impressions?
So first of all, I was impressed. I know a lot of people are like, what? Like, oh, he's okay. But you got to take into context what was going on. And you got to take into context how immensely complicated that Vikings defense is and how silly it's made a lot of people look.
Yeah.
And for a rookie to come in there in his first start and not get embarrassed is actually pretty remarkable in itself.
Yeah, and we're not saying he looked like, Tom Brady out there, but he didn't look lost. Like he looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked comfortable.
Look at Cam Ward.
Cam Ward looks terrible.
He's mostly looked terrible. I know they had that comeback win, but it was on an interception that the guy fumbled and they recovered it in the end zone. That was one of the biggest plays. Let's be real here. I mean, Cam Ward's had moments, but for the most part, he's looked pretty poor. And he's super talented, right? So, let's take a step back. Jackson Dart just had a bunch of random fumbles this past game. It is what it is. The point being, he looked in control. And the fact that he looked in control is a big step. I also thought he showed his arm strength. I saw people commenting, where's his arm strength? Okay, guys, he isn't Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But he's a strong arm, so where do you see that? He doesn't have a
weak arm, because people were trying to say that he has a weak arm, and that was not true.
That's what really combating, because he's short. And whenever people are short, they assume he has a weak arm.
Yeah, it was the same for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I was going to say, the crazy thing is, I'll never forget in 2020 against the Ravens, and Sims on Sunday Night Football literally says, that's the thing about Baker. He doesn't have the best arm, and he's not the best athlete, but he fights through it. And then in that half, he threw that 70-yard pass attempt.
Yeah, it was one of the longest.
It is the longest ever. It is in live action, yes. It is the longest ever pass attempt in live action. And it literally happened in the same half. It's just funny because he's talking about him not having a strong arm. He's short, and that's just the way it is. And that's what they do. So with Dillon, he doesn't have a rocket arm, but he does have a strongish arm. He's got a middling starter arm.
He's capable of
which is strong.
He's capable of putting zip on the ball. We saw that in that touchdown.
And that's really what you're talking about. So the most important thing in the NFL is getting velocity in that 20-yard range.
Yeah.
That's really what you want to see. And he has that. And second of all, in that Hail Mary, the one that didn't count, he just kind of lobbed it up there. Everybody heard the whistles.
Yeah.
But he did get about 55 yards in the air, and it was no triple run up. To get it. He wasn't taking 3 steps on a run up. And it went 55-ish yards, air yards.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. It's a strong arm. It's not crazy, but it's a strong arm.
That's all you need. You don't need to throw it 70 yards in the air.
Yeah, it's nice if you have that crazy arm, but that's not necessarily what everybody's expecting. And then you saw the real strength on that touchdown throw to Njoku. The velocity on that ball. It's when you see an opening, but then there's 2 defenders coming from the sides, and it's not going to last that long.
And it's tight in the red zone.
Yeah, and you've got 15 air yards between you because you're sitting back in the pocket. Mm-hmm. So you got 15 air yards. It's a 9-yard touchdown pass, but it's about 15-ish air yards. You got to put that zip on it, and he gets it there in time.
Yeah, he blasted that. If he had a noodle arm like everyone was saying he did, that ball would have been batted down. Probably not picked, but it would have been batted down.
It might have been picked.
Maybe.
If it floated, there was 2 defenders coming in.
But almost for sure would have been batted down.
Oh, yeah.
He had to, put some zip on that ball, and he did. He had that velocity, and like we were saying, his arm's not amazing, but it's not weak. His arm is fine. His arm will not be the reason he's not successful if he ends up not being successful.
And I thought on that last drive, the failed Hail Mary, I thought it actually looked good on the 2 plays. First of all, he only had 2 plays.
Yeah.
Which is excessively hard. Like, he basically had nothing to go with. First play, he's on the move. He zips one to Bond for over 20 yards. It was a really nice play, actually. And then he hits Thrash, and it's a good ball. The plan was for him to get out of bounds because they didn't want to try a Hail Mary for 50 yards out, which is nearly impossible.
It basically never work anyway, yeah.
The times that has worked, it's so rare, and it basically requires some kind of fluke. Like, it's just weird. And on top of that, you've got a left tackle that's not holding up. So, like, and you got a rookie first start. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So they wanted an out. Now, maybe they should have had a quicker out and try to get, like, 10 yards on it. We could talk about that. But that was the play. Thrash wasn't fast enough, couldn't make it to the sideline. That's the play. You take a risk no matter what. And they decided to take this risk instead. The ball was right where it's supposed to be. He was perfectly en route. He didn't have to slow down for it. He just wasn't fast enough to make it to the sideline. There's nothing you can do about that sometimes. But the ball was where it was supposed to be. And I thought it was actually impressive in a big moment like that, in his first game, that actually both throws were spot on. So I thought he was overall impressive. There were things he missed. He had a rollout where he missed Njoku. Like, it wasn't like he was
he had
perfect.
a couple balls that sailed that were not.
He did. He did have
impressive.
one that was pickable. It was dropped. So I don't want to pretend like he never had a rookie moment. He definitely did. But for the most part, it didn't rattle him. The fact that he almost threw a pick didn't rattle him. He stayed calm, collected. And I think if he had gotten a little more chances, if the last 3 drives they had tried to be not aggressive, but like a little bit more. They tried to do a little bit more with it. I think he would have gotten a few more first downs and could have led them to then having enough time that they would have won the game.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You can't change the past. But I also think that he'll build a little confidence from Stefanski that he can do things a little better. And I would not be shocked, and I know this sounds a little crazy, but I would not be shocked.
This is going to be really crazy.
If he helps Judy actually play better. Because Judy, I think, is a guy, he only plays well when he's locked in. He has to feel like he's a part of the play at a fair amount of the game. And if he's not a fair amount of it and in threat to be a part of it for a lot of the game, he's out of it. Just like A.J. Brown, we just quit on that ball. Like, that's who he is. And we could talk about how maybe we shouldn't be paying a guy to do that if that's who he is, but that is who he is. And I do think, not that Dillon's crazy, but I do think he has a nice 15, 20-yard ball. Yeah. And I think he can get Judy a lot more involved. And I think they'll connect a little bit more. And I don't think he'll be maybe doing what he did last year, but I do think you'll see a better version of him because that's just how he plays. Like, when he's in, he's in. And when he's not, he has concentration issues and tends to drop a lot more balls.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens when we can get Cedric Tillman back, because that's a really nice play for him. I'm curious to see if they play more Jamari Thrash. If I was the Browns, I'd play a little more Thrash because he has chemistry with Thrash. He played a lot with him in practice. So
preseason.
Yeah, so a little bit more of him I think would be a good idea, and hopefully him and Bond can continue to get going. And yeah, you're gonna have to use those tight ends a lot. He had a good connection with Njoku, but it's going to be a little tricky unless they can get somebody like Judy or Bond more consistently involved in order to stretch the field. However, don't be surprised if he puts up Brissett-ish type years that when he was here, where he's actually pretty productive and gets a nice amount of plays. And it's like, yeah, he's not pulling your socks off, but he's real productive and he gets plays done. And he gets 15, 20 yarders on a relatively common basis. Not uncommon for him to do that. And so I think I just seen a few guys in media already come out and say, oh, you saw his ceiling. Like, from one game, you suddenly decided you saw his ceiling?
Yeah.
That seems like a ridiculous statement.
That's coming from somebody who judged him before he started and then saw something. Okay,
well, it was from a Shador guy.
They're like, oh, that's his ceiling. Like, it feels like you're coping. And I'm not trying to say that this was his floor either. I'm just saying that we don't know. He's an unknown right now, and he still is after that game. I think he showed enough that I think you look at him and you're like, all right, he probably is like a backup bridge quarterback, like if he plays like that consistently, right? But he can absolutely grow from there. I mean, let's see what happens. Again, the play calling was still relatively conservative. Less so than with Joe Flacco, but relatively conservative still. But it was his first game, and he's playing a very complicated defense. Yeah. Let's see how he progresses through the year as they begin to unleash him a little bit more, or not, right? We'll see. But that could happen, and we'll judge that, right? There'll be time.
And hey, look, you're looking at the Steelers next. While they are tough, they're not. We'll get more into it, but they're not as tough, I think, as the Vikings for a rookie. Like, they're not as complicated. And then you get into like the Dolphins. You get a few more. I believe the Patriots. You get a few.
The schedule will ease up.
Easier games. Yeah, you'll get a few games where he'll get to show his potential, and we'll have a much better idea 4 or 5 weeks in. We'll get a much better idea of where he is. Like, let's like pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not time to really judge him overall as a prospect. No. We judge each game individually, and then, like you said, 4 to 5, 6 games. That's when we'll start judging him as a prospect and whether, it's worth keeping him around or if it's just draft a guy next year, number 1, see what we can do, right? I think Dillon Gabriel overall, I think we both pretty much feel that he did enough to justify the move to him over Joe Flacco. He didn't do anything crazy, but he had his moments. He looked overall pretty solid. He had some moments that weren't great, but he had moments that were quite good.
Since he's a rookie, let's do a grade here. A letter grade?
Sure.
I'm thinking C+. All things considered, C+.
Yeah, I wouldn't go any higher than that. I agree with that. I think C+ is pretty much exactly where he was. He didn't really do anything wrong. He did a little bit more than just average play, but
considering he was playing, first start against the Vikings, I'll give him
it's
C+.
his debut. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I'm not going crazy. I just think.
Well, yeah, you said on a curve.
Potential.
Yeah, exactly. So on a curve, absolutely. Yeah, I think C+ is fair. All right, we're going to roll into our brownie point segment. If you are a first-time listener, the brownie point segment is where we award brownie points to the standout players on offense and to the standout players on defense. The more brownie points you got, the better we thought you performed. All right, so at 3 brownie points, we are in agreement here. Quinshon Judkins dominated in that game. It feels like he's better every time we watch him play. And I mean, he looked great after, week 3. And then it was like, wow, he's really good in week 4. And then I watched him this week, and I was like, he's playing like a top 10 back in the league, in my opinion. The way that he's basically has no negative plays, like everything's at least positive something, right? Even if it's just like 1 or 2, it's positive something. The way that, and I've been harping on this every week, but the way he turns 3 yards into 4 or 5 and 5 into 6 and 7, and then every once in a while busts 8 into 15, he has so much burst at the line. I will say his top end speed is nothing crazy. It is a little difficult for him, I think, to go all the way to the house because of his lack of top end speed, I think. But he's got a really good burst, really good acceleration, and just unbelievable.
It's still solid speed.
Power.
He can take it 40, 50 yards.
Yeah. He could go 30, 40 to the house, just not like 50 beyond, I think. At that point, I think he would be caught. But regardless, that remains to be seen. But that burst power and acceleration that he has is a lethal combo at the line of scrimmage, especially the way that our offensive line has been playing in their run game. Our offensive line in the run game has been playing pretty well. And Quinshon Judkins in this game, I think, was 21 carries, a little over 100 yards. I think 4.8 yards per carry. And he really showed that, he's the running back number 1. And maybe this is like, I don't want to say mean, but maybe this is like not the right angle to be thinking. But when I watched him in this game, I was like, wow, don't miss Nick Chubb that much, actually. Are not missing Nick Chubb as much as I thought we would be.
Not as much. I mean, Nick Chubb in his prime was...
I'm not saying that Nick Chubb wouldn't be better to have in there, like prime Nick Chubb. I'm just saying that I was expecting it to be just a nightmare at running back, and it hasn't been. It's been a real plus for this team. Something they can actually lean on, which they're really going to need.
And to be fair, and he is a rookie, and while running backs don't need as much time to develop, certainly as quarterbacks, but they do gain in terms of their vision. Like there was one play where he was going out to the edge, and he really should have actually cut back. It was on 3rd and 1, and there was a hole there, and he really should have cut back quickly, and he might have only gotten 2-3, but he would have gotten the first down for sure. But so vision does come also. The game slows down more. Your vision does improve a bit as you go on. So there's some room to improve as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
but he definitely deserved 3. He was awesome.
Yeah, he was absolutely the best player. And then at 2 brownie points, we had Malik Collins. How did you feel about him?
Yeah, first of all, Malik Collins has been a really pleasant surprise. And, it's one of those things where this is something that you don't really know as an NFL, as somebody who as a fan, as somebody who follows, as a pundit, nobody really brings this up. Not much. It's something that's thrown out in camp, but then later on people find out. And then it turns out that's such a big deal is that he was told to lose some weight. And he lost some weight. And it's the kind of thing that's like, okay, you hear that kind of thing flying around camps everywhere.
You don't think anything of it. Nobody knows it.
But sometimes for some players, it actually is the big difference. And like, for example, you actually heard that about Baker last year. And it's not about how he overall played, but his rushing improved a lot when he lost weight. People noticed he did. And then his rushing, he put up like 350 or whatever last year. And he's definitely better at it this year too. And so you're seeing with Malik Collins, he's got more burst. And you don't think of it, but now you're like, oh, that makes sense. That actually was a big difference maker for him.
Yeah, it just gives you a little bit extra
he's been excellent.
Acceleration, a little bit more for that person. Like
if he had a bigger name, I think he'd be getting DPOY talk. And look, so he's got 3.5 sacks, Malik Collins, and he's been super dominant, but he's been inside all the time. Like he's got 3.5 in 5 games.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think he would actually be getting serious DPOI talk, but it'd be like, be mentioned. I think it would be like, wow, look at him making tons of plays if he was already a big name that people expected.
Yeah.
As is, I don't think he should be getting DPOI talk, but I'm just saying he's having that kind of year that people will be noticing. But people are starting to take notice. He had 2 sacks. He looked excellent. He's super explosive. He's a problem every game, all the time. I love how he's playing. Like I really love it.
Him and Myles Garrett are playing off of each other. Like Malik Collins is taking advantage of the matchups that he's getting because of Myles Garrett's play, and then when they're playing off of Myles Garrett's taking advantage. It's been really nice to see, and it's something that we haven't really seen with Myles Garrett, is a partner who's also getting penetration and also getting sacks. But it's been really good from him. And then at one brownie point, we had David Njoku. I mean, he had his game, his numbers again weren't anything insane, but they were solid. And he had just a number of incredible athletic plays, the catch, the hurdle. I really like what I was seeing from him today.
He also has maybe the record for the most useless hurdles.
He
just has like a lot of hurdles that gained him like 2 yards. Like he has a lot of hurdles that gained him like 2 yards.
Hurdles usually don't get you very far because you actually have to basically slow down in order to do them, and then you just go up and forward, right? And you usually only move up like 3 yards. Basically, if he had just kept running, you couldn't because there's a defender there, right? But if you keep running, you would have gotten like 6, 7, 8 yards in the same amount of time that you do a hurdle and move up like 1 yard.
Yeah, honestly, if you fell forward, then he got the same amount of yards.
Up to you. Yeah. Like, for most people, after you do a hurdle, you get tackled. But either way, I applaud him for it because I have a lot of fun, and I like watching him do hurdles. I enjoy them, and I want him to continue that. I don't think it hurt him in that play. Do you know what I mean? Like he was going to get tackled anyway, right? So might as well jump over somebody on the way, right? I had a lot of fun. I liked it.
That's good.
All right. Let's preview the Browns game coming up versus the Steelers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our predictions actually this year have been pretty good this year, actually. Usually we're like wrong every week, I feel like. Well, not that we're wrong every week, but it's hard to predict the outcomes of games with the specificity that we've been this year. Like we've been getting the scores almost exactly right, like on a number of games.
Within a reasonable.
On a number of games, we were within like 5 points on each team, which I know it doesn't sound that good, but that's pretty hard to do. But Browns-Steelers game, what are you expecting? We thought it wasn't going to be very close in that game versus the Vikings. It ended up being a little closer than we thought. What are you thinking versus the Steelers? Are you feeling a win? Are you feeling it's going to be ugly?
I'm actually feeling a W.
Okay, and that's not us being homers. If you're just tuning in for the first week, the last 3 weeks we predicted losses. Like we're not sitting around predicting W's every week. So if you say that, if we say that, it's because we actually mean it. We're not just throwing it out there.
I think it's going to be like a 2017 W. Like it's going to be a little close. I think their defense is good, but not as complicated as the Vikings. I think that gives us a little bit of leeway. They will focus to stop the run. I think you'll see a little bit better from Dillon Gabriel in week 2. I don't think there'll be huge leaps. The Steelers' defense is still pretty good. But also, I don't think they're going to beat us up too much on offense. A lot of they got away with was like a big play or two, but the Vikings' run defense hasn't been great, and that's the Steelers' last win. I want to clarify why I'm bringing that up. And so Kenneth Gainwell was able to beat them up on it. While the Browns' run defense at times was not great this week against Mason, for the most part, it's been very good this year. And I think we can expect that they can give Gainwell a big problem. I don't think Warren will be back yet this week. We'll have to see. But I don't think he'll be back yet this week. So you'll be dealing with Gainwell. And I believe they will be able to stop him. And then Rodgers is very mixed this year. So you had one pretty good game against the Vikings. But honestly, I think the reason is the Vikings don't have the world's best secondary. They get you by being super confusing and complicated, but they're not crazily talented. And Rodgers, well, guess what? Aaron Rodgers has seen them all. So that actually gives him a bit of an advantage. That's something where he can play to his strengths, and they were able to play off of the run, which helps him a lot. And then he picked his spots, and it was mostly DK Metcalf making that big, huge play.
And look, at the end of the day, he had 200 yards. It's not like he was throwing for 300 or 400 or anything like that.
And the
Steelers, he wasn't lighting it up.
The Steelers is mostly Metcalf. Yeah. Most of what they do. They don't have that second guy like Addison. And I think the Browns can key in on him. They can throw Ward on him and create major problems. And I think if he's holding that ball for a bit, usually he doesn't. He tries to get the ball quickly, but he'll really have to do it very consistently because that, I think our D-line is going to be looking for vengeance. I think Myles Garrett's going to want to bounce back game. He didn't have a bad game, but not as good as he often does. Certainly not this year. This year he's been so dominant most of the year. I think he'll be looking to make a big play. The Browns are always a little more, amped up to play the Steelers. And I think there'll be a little bit. There's just gonna be a little more. I think
I
have a
little
more
for
juice.
Losses. I mean, I think that.
And Rodgers had a good game, and he hasn't played that well overall in his career. So, not in his overall career, but over the last couple of years. Just to clarify what I mean by that.
Yeah,
it was the last couple of years, and this year too. So, I think he's due for a little bit of a down game. And I think as opposed to Dillon as a rookie, where you're talking about, it's more complicated for him to face trickier defenses than more talented defenses.
Yeah.
For Rodgers, it's tougher to make him play more talented defense than it is more complicated defenses because his brain's still with him. So, point is, I think he'll be all right, but I think he's going to make a few mistakes, as you've seen him often do this year, Rodgers, because he won't be able to overly rely on the run.
Yeah.
And I think the
Browns
Browns
have a good defense.
will be consistent. Yeah, and Judkins has just been good, period. And so I think he'll do enough, and Gabriel will make enough plays that they'll squeak out a win. And so that's what I'm predicting.
Yeah, I'm actually, interestingly enough, I'm actually on the same page with you on this one. I actually do also think the Browns are going to win this one, 2017. Again, both of us were predicted losses the last 3 weeks, so this is not like we're predicting wins every week. This is not just being homers. I do actually feel they're going to win. without sounding too much like a simpleton, I feel like the Browns are due. I don't know. I feel like they've had a few close games here. I feel like they're getting to that scrappiness. I think that that little bit of the edge I think will have developed after these like tough losses. I think they're going to come out with just a little bit more of that. And some of that is just chance, right? If you play in a certain amount of close games, you're going to win some of those close games. And the defense creates a lot of close games. Yeah. I think this will be another close one. I think the Browns will pull it out in this one. I think Dillon will have advanced just a little bit. Hopefully we'll take another little bit of step up. This game, he had 190, 2 touchdowns. I think in this game, I would expect something similar yards-wise. I think probably about like 210, 220. I'm also hoping for about 2 DDs. Obviously, hopefully no picks. But I think that the way that everything sequences and the way that everything plays out, I'm thinking and I'm hoping will be more in the Browns'
more efficient,
favor.
maybe like 62%, 64%.
Yeah,
while doing 200
exactly.
And then also, if it's one touchdown, guys, don't get too caught up in the touchdowns because they might just be running them in with Judkins. So let's not.
And also, let's remember again in that Browns game, if they hadn't gotten that false start at the end of the first half, they might have had a touchdown in that play, right? That's what I'm trying to say. With like just things falling in the right place for them this week, and similar production, the defense holding up. I think that. Aaron Rodgers has not been that impressive this year. He had a great first game, and then after that, it's been, just fine. So I really don't think there's anything to be terrified of. Yes, the Steelers' defense is still pretty good, and they might terrorize our offensive line, but we'll see what happens. I overall think though that the Browns will pull it out 2017. So we're on the same page about that one. So if we're wrong, we're both wrong on that one. And that's going to be our episode for today. Thank you for listening, especially if you got this far. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your views, listens, comments, likes, whatever it is that you are providing. We appreciate it, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.